And welcome, everybody, to episode 202 of Two Goalies, One Mic, brought to you by Fatty Beer Company, Western New York's premier market and tap room with over 300 beers to choose from. Lots of summer activities going on at Fatty Beer. So if you need a beer and you're looking to have a good time, make sure you make it a Fatty Beer. And let them know Two Goalies, One Mic sent you. I am Duane, your host. My co-host, Connor Hurley, looking like, I know, I like this look on you. The headband.
Thanks.
I don't know.
It's the off season. I'm trying less and less.
Did you wait? Oh, hold on. Did you make the? I love it. You made the thumbnail your background. That is amazing.
You can do a lot of creative stuff in here. I had to make a background, so I decided to go with what will likely be one of the best memes of our time as Sabres fans.
That's the thing too. I was thinking about it as we were waiting to go live. I'm just curious, should we we got to do an episode of just a ranking of just the meme worthy content this organization has put out over the drought, whether it's your background, the Turdberger jersey, the door. Who is working on the media side of things when they put these events together that thought this was a good idea? I
will say, and I've said this for a long time, and you know this. I think the best part of the Sabres organization is their off the ice production crew, the people that do the Beyond Blue and Gold. The people
no doubt about that.
Yeah. So they were not responsible for this.
But this in general,
this was strictly a management business decision. And we know that group of people can never make the right decision. They have two left feet when it comes to this type of thing. So it was, I can tell you with extreme confidence, if they told the social media team or the production team that this was their idea to reveal what KeyBank Center would be for the next 10 seasons, they would have been like, yeah, well, you are figuratively and literally opening yourself up to thousands and hundreds of thousands of memes for the next however many years. And they could be good memes if the team is good, but as it currently stands, it's a 14-year playoff drought.
And make no mistake about it either. This is something that once it kind of circulates and gets around enough, I'm surprised, other national hockey outlets, podcasters haven't really caught on to this yet because of just the topic of the Sabres and just their ineptitude to do really anything right hasn't really caught on yet, because this is a layup if you're going to dunk on the Sabres, right? This is a layup. And
it's how the internet works. And honestly, I think it's one of the beautiful things about the internet that people can be really creative with this type of thing. I saw some really good memes. I saw some really good videos. And honestly, in the middle of July, we don't have much to talk about. So I'm kind of happy they did this. Otherwise, it would have just been a boring announcement and we wouldn't have gotten much out of it. But yeah, I don't know. I think they definitely probably made a mistake, but the mistake will be forgotten if they actually win games.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, the meme could turn into a great meme, because this could be the opening of the door to the season where they finally break the drought. As it currently stands, I mean, based upon our last episode when we predicted their record, probably far too optimistically, we'll see if they actually get to 98, 99 points. But yeah, it's not looking good right now. I will say, though, that I think what we think the opening night roster is on July 30th is going to be different than what it is in early October.
And another thing too is just when I was talking outside of our own chat, about what me and you predicted, people are just you of all people predicting. I don't know how I did it.
If you go game by game, you're inherently going to be more optimistic than you would be looking at it the scope of the entire season. Mm-hmm. And I think what we did is best case scenario. They're not going to get more than 100 points. So if everything goes right, if everybody takes the next step, they have a little bit of injury luck. They get better goaltending, better defense, and the offense is
either the same as last season or better, even closer to what it was 2 years ago, Tage getting like 94 points, then yeah, they could get 98 points. I really do believe that. But this is what everybody's talking about. They're relying on everything going right, which, as Jason Zucker said, hope is not a strategy.
No, and it's a great quote to pull out too. I just can't get over, man. When I was watching that live and I saw the doors, I'm like, no, they're not going to do this, right? There's just no way. There's no way they're going to do this. Like, you have no idea what you're opening yourself up to if you actually open a double door, unless like whatever was behind said door was something like some type of strategic plan or
even like renovations for the arena.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like something that we already didn't know that was announced, obviously, like the night before, which was the extension of the naming rights to the arena. Like you are giving us like something that's pure gold in like the worst kind of way, because this is something we don't want to be dunking on you for forever, like we have been. And when it was just literally just them announcing.
Well, I will say that old people, especially old business people that are in this case very much concerned about the bottom line, they don't think in memes. They don't think in what Gen Z and even millennials in this case are thinking about. How can we make this funny? You know, not one person in that room was like, all right, this is a bad idea, which is probably why they should have involved the social team, who, as good as they are, they probably would have made a meme out of it themselves. And yeah, I think, especially in terms of like their perception amongst the fan base, I think the Sabres have an opportunity here to even like poke fun at themselves.
Yeah, I know.
If they use the meme themselves, which they might not be allowed to from upper management, but if they were to poke fun at themselves about this while everybody's already doing it, that would establish a little bit of goodwill, and they would at least be in on the joke. But they probably won't do that because of one specific person.
Yeah, that's very, very, very true. Very, very thin-skinned up there. Pegula Sports Entertainment, if that's still a thing, or
it is not a thing.
It's not. I don't think it was.
As of, I think 3 years ago they disbanded, and now
I remember they started like liquidating a lot of their like assets.
Yeah, the Sabres and Bills production teams are completely separate, and
as it should be.
They work in different offices. They have complete. I do think they, at least the production side of it, did a nice job when PSC did exist, and a lot of really talented people work there. But I think as it stands now, each team is doing a pretty good job, at least from an off the field and off the ice content perspective. So probably a good idea in the long run to separate them. But yeah, from a business and money perspective, it was just saving money. And that's what they've tried to do, obviously, in the past 5 years.
I do want to give a quick shout out. I went to a Collective Soul. It was Collective Soul, Our Lady Peace, and Live, the band. It's like a 90s dream. If you grew up in that era of music, it was just an amazing show. With live headlining, Our Lady Peace opened up, and then Collective Soul in the middle. Met one of our fans. Want to give a shout out to Michael Andrew out there. Super cool to meet you, bud, and you have fantastic taste in music, as do I. But one thing I do want to say, Hurl, is especially over the past year, and I know I brought it up to you, I think given, since we're talking about 14, potentially 15 years, and just the despair that has been the Buffalo Sabres for over a decade, one cool thing that I will say that I'll take away from just this podcast, and we're going to get into more about podcasting here very shortly when Patrick Moran hops out on us in a few minutes, because that is something I want to talk about and get his thoughts on today's announcement too. Like the one cool thing that I'll take away from this is just learning that we're just not I want to say that we're not a run-of-the-mill podcast, but it's pretty cool that when you go out in public to large groups, and you would probably feel this too. You would feel this too if you lived in Buffalo.
I get recognized in LA from this podcast all the time.
Get out of here! No, you don't. That'd be incredible, but I wish. But
I mean, at least like amongst like Buffalo people, but
like I'm not trying to pump my own tires or the podcast tires, but like it is cool to get recognized for the work we put in to this show for sure, and just know that we're not just some run of the mill Sabres podcast anymore. You know, I think that we have given ourselves a lot of credibility out there in terms of our thoughts, our opinions, and just how much fun we've been able to have since I've started this podcast back with, with Johnny Cullen, and now with you as my co-host, in the past 2 years. Like, how much fun it's been, man.
No, it's been cool, and
Makes
even my online profile and the way that I interact with both Sabres and Bills fans has definitely increased, and it's made the despair of it all a little bit easier. I would say that we're doing this meaningfully for people that are also kind of in this without choice, right? Like,
yeah,
a lot of these people,
it's in our DNA.
Always follow there's a lot of people that have stopped following the Sabres, and I have a few friends that have left group chats, that have left message boards, don't follow on Reddit anymore when they used to, when the team was good, because they're just so over it, and rightfully so. But it's such a hockey fan, and being a Buffalonian, I have no choice. And my dad having season tickets from the first season in 1970, I have no choice but to watch as many games as I possibly can, schedule allowing. And it's been cool, and I appreciate everybody tuning in. And I mean, onward and upward, right? Like, we can't control what the team does. We can only react to what happens. And I think at the end of the day, we do a pretty good job of it. And we'll see what happens. I live my life optimistically. There are things here and there that have gotten in the way, but for the most part, and especially when it comes to this team, I'm gonna have some hope until there's no chance, until we're mathematically eliminated. I'm gonna try to have some hope, because the day it's way more fun than being miserable and pessimistic.
Like, it's funny too, because like, I'm the same way, but not in the same. I'm the same way as you are, but I'm just not the same way you are. I'm not the same way you are in the exact same way. Like, I'll always hold out hope, even when there is no hope, that there's a chance until they're mathematically out playoffs. But also, I'm also a realist when, playoff, whatever, tankathon or whatever that site is showing, you guys have less than 1% chance to making the playoffs. Like, for me, it's like, yeah, they're not gonna make the playoffs, but I'll still sit there silently and just like you and be like, come on, like, there's still a chance. It's in my DNA. I think it's in your DNA, and everybody from our generation and beforehand that experienced those great years with the Sabres. It sucks that we have to latch on to stuff that, like, today to really get us through. The memes and the despair and all of it in between. But one thing I do want to bring up too, obviously, we're talking about our podcast and podcasting, mainstream media, local media, and we're going to bring in Patrick Moran here in a second. From the Talking Buffalo podcast. Really appreciate him coming in. Is the debate between local media, mainstream media, and what we do, right? Information we present, how we report on the Sabres, how Bills podcast report on the Bills, and just a difference, and where our fan base is leaning towards more in terms of absorbing their media. And I want to bring Pat Moran, because I know he is very outspoken about this today on Twitter. And obviously in the Sabres offseason, where there isn't a lot of talk about, that's why we actually skipped yesterday, because there is nothing to talk about. We couldn't even BS anything to talk about. But the Sabres gift wrapped us something today to talk about. And then obviously this today with the topic of the day surrounding that. So we're bringing Pat Moran. Mr. Moran, thank you for hopping on with us. For those of you who don't know who he is the host of the Talking Buffalo podcast. You can find him at Patrick Moran TV on Twitter. Thanks for hopping on with us.
Oh, my pleasure, man. Good to be on. Good to talk. Whatever you guys want to talk about, man. It's been, Twitter's been a handful the past couple of days, man, for sure. Yeah. Good to be on, though.
Yeah, before we get into that topic, just want to get your thoughts. I'm sure you saw the announcement this morning on the renewal of the KeyBank naming rights of the arena. And, hopefully maybe this leads to arena renovations that are, I mean, I think it's an understatement, long overdue, considering we rank near the bottom of the league in terms of just fan, where we rank in terms of our arena, I guess, compared to even small markets, small hockey markets. It's kind of embarrassing. Your thoughts on the Sabres just kind of laying up to the fan base, another meme from the drought, and just what you think maybe this announcement might mean in terms, or is it just more of a, just normal news cycle stuff?
Well, let me ask you a question, because honestly, I saw it this morning on Twitter. I've been really locked into Bills camp this week, and I was in Rochester for a few days, and I traveled back to Buffalo, and I was catching up with a bunch of things. I heard about there being an announcement at the arena, and then there was, like, it came out on Twitter early this morning, or there was a press release maybe. I think the Sabres might have tweeted, and then there was the event at the arena, and it was all the same thing, correct? Just to pretty much announce the continued partnership with KeyBank or something for the next. Here was my thought, okay? As a content creator, and maybe you guys agree with this, this is the easiest team to find stuff to talk about that I think I've ever been around in my life, because the content, or if you're writing, just everything, they do it themselves. You don't have to search, high and far to find things to talk about with the Sabres, mostly in a ridiculous manner, just because of all the stuff that goes on off the ice. Mm-hmm. And I didn't see it in person. I was following along on social media this morning, and I see Terry Pegula with a hockey helmet on. And my thought is, this is going to be awesome for at least the next 6 months. I probably counted, I saw one meme where it's Pegula's helmet on, and they were talking about he'll be playing for Josh Norris after 15 games.
Yeah.
Being there. Just things like that. It's like, God, this team just has such a habit, and we've seen a lot of times with Kevin Adams' press conferences and some of the things he says, they just give you so much to laugh about. I want to say talk, but maybe it's laugh about it as well. I don't know. I'm not really up to date on what was going on with that specifically today. I just kind of found it funny. And is that, and I don't know, because I don't follow the other teams around the league. Is that like press conference worthy? Is that announcement worthy? That's an email me. Is that having the mayor of the city of Buffalo on hand, or at least the acting mayor for now, the Erie County executive? I don't know. I'm kind of at a loss of why couldn't it just be sent out as a press release? Like, why did there need to be something at KeyBank Center this morning? I guess I'm kind of at a loss right now, trying to figure out why.
I'll answer first before Connor does. I personally think there's a lot, like, Terry Pegula takes a lot of criticism, at least as of late, for never being in front of a camera. This is his way, in my opinion, of just saying, hey, I was just in front of the media, in regards to the Sabres. I spoke on the future of the team, and again, to me, this is email newsworthy. This isn't something that I really think that needed to have this big announcement of 10 years. I think you could have this could have been done with a tweet or an email or just some post on sabres.com.
Sure.
It didn't need to be all like the glitz and glamour. And like before we brought you on, like when you were watching it live and you saw that double door thing, and then they bring up that key, and I'm like, oh no, they're not going to do this, are they? Like, they're not going to do this. Like they are literally giving their fans, not just their fans, but from a national perspective, because that has been like the fun thing to do. We just saw the tweet from the Colorado Avalanche this past week where they were dunking on the Sabres for literally no reason. Some haiku limerick about the Sabres blowing 5-goal leads. Like they're just giving not just the fans, but national media a layup to dunk on us. And I'll let Connor give his thoughts on that. It was just, for me, it was a cop out. Like, I'm here. Like, I'm still here for Sabres fans. To me, that's what that was.
Real quick, Pat, I'm a longtime reader of your wing reviews from like way back in the day. You actually turned me on to 9/11 Tavern before it got cool. So I just want to say thank you for that.
I appreciate that, man.
I played Cas hockey back in the spring of 2010. And I'm from North Buffalo, and I obviously Irish, but went down to South Buffalo and reading your wing reviews from as long as, I don't know, how long have you been doing them?
Gosh, well, over a decade for sure.
Yeah, it was like before the days of like Twitter for me. So me and my friends have all read them for a really long time.
I appreciate that, man.
Really appreciate your work. And yeah, it's been a fun ride. And obviously everybody's doing them now. So it's a little bit saturated, but everybody knows who the OGs are. Yeah, in regards to the Sabres, I think kind of what they did today was a little bit of in response to, remember last fall when that report came out from, it was either Channel 2 or Channel 4, that the lease might expire and that everybody was worried about the team moving. And I think that was probably a hit to Terry's ego a little bit, that he probably thought like, oh, like everyone thinks that like I can't handle two teams in the same city and everyone thinks that they're going to move. So let's do this big public grandiose type thing where we need a celebration. We need a presentation. I think that was probably related to that. I don't know. We were saying earlier before you got on, these business people, these older people, they don't think in memes like we do, right? Like when they opened that door today, they probably didn't think that this would become a meme that we're all going to use for the next 5-10 years, especially if the team continues down this path that they have been for a long time.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to
cut you off. No worries. And I was just going to say, if they start to win, it'll become a good meme, right? Because it was the meme before they broke the drought. But as it currently stands, they can't do anything right. So it only adds fuel to the fire.
Well, I'll say this too, on a more serious side. Like, again, it almost felt like unintentional comedy today, seeing that, especially when, like Duane said too, it could have been a press release, or the team put something out and okay, that's great news. Cool. But to make this a ceremony and everything, the serious side of it is, and Duane mentioned this, you have an owner who has not spoken about this team since COVID, literally 2020. Yeah. Okay. And he's there in a hockey helmet on, and it's just, again, it looks comical, but it's another situation where Terry Pegula is at the arena. It's something that involves the Sabres, and he doesn't speak. So as a fan, maybe as somebody who, if you covered the team, it probably gets under your skin that this is another opportunity where it's almost like, hey, look, I'm here, but I'm not going to talk to you guys. Screw you. Like that that's not his intention, and that's not what I'm suggesting it is. But it's just another opportunity where Terry Pegula is in front of a camera at the arena involving the Buffalo Sabres, and he won't speak. Like maybe if they did the ceremony and then they got to open it up for some questions from some hockey media were there, and he could ask questions about how he feels about, I don't care, it don't have to be the toughest questions, but the offseason moves. What did you think? You could hit on the salary cap if you want. You could talk about the draft picks, whatever you want to do. He's there, but he just continues to not speak about the team. And seeing him there in that light with the helmet on and that comical part, there's a layer of that kind of annoys me more, because I keep thinking back to, well, when's the last time the owner of this hockey team spoke to the media or to the fans, whatever way you want to look at it. And this is just another one in a long list of opportunities where he did not do that.
This is a serious question. When is the last time he spoke about the Bills in like a public setting to the media?
No, it's a good question. I don't know. I could guarantee it's been since COVID, though.
Probably, yeah.
And it doesn't matter as much because they're winning, and
right.
I get that too.
I was more so wondering that, because if he had and he was just like negligent about the Sabres specifically, I think it'd be more offensive. But I think just him as a person and him as he's not Jerry Jones, right? Like he doesn't have this public persona, this public face. From what I hear from people that know him, like he's a little bit socially awkward. He doesn't necessarily have the gift of gab. So I do think he's a bit worried, especially when it comes to the Sabres, because obviously it's the exact opposite of the Bills. That if he were to get in front of a microphone and face tough questions from the media, which he inevitably would, especially about the salary cap and the lack of spending in the past 5 years, I do think at this point that him and the people around him think that he would probably do more harm than good.
That's a fair point. Kevin Adams does more harm than good, and he's the general
every time he opens his mouth
of the team. So, yeah, it's a very fair point, but it's still it just continues to be frustrating to me that he doesn't. Even though everything you just said 100% spot on. It probably would do more harm than good, but at some point, especially on a team that just bleeds year after year, you got to get out there. At some point, say something. I don't know, figure out something, some kind of way to just talk about the team. I don't have that expectation. He's not going to do it. And that's kind of just a little underlying thing in today's, everything that went on today, which again, to me, it's unintentional comic relief that we're going to have a lot of fun with for a long time to come. The memes, the hockey helmet, all that stuff. It's just another thing. This team off the ice. They're more interesting off the ice than on the ice. That's how I've been feeling about them now for the past year and a half, at least.
Yeah, you're not wrong. And I hope Curls is right too, that maybe this is just the beginning of the end. And, this is the meme that turned it all around, right? Like, this is the meme that, opened the door to the first playoff berth in 15 years. And I hope you're right, Connor. I really do. And in terms of you see Terry in Bill's media, you see him on the sidelines during training camp, you see him at games, you see him in the locker room. And I think that's a lot where the narrative comes from a Sabres standpoint. It's like, where is he? Like, why isn't he front and center like he is for the Bills? And maybe he is to a certain extent with the Sabres. We just don't see it as much because obviously you have 82 game now. 84 games this season or next year?
No, it's next year. Next year.
Right now, 82 game season compared to 17 games plus playoffs with the Bills. So it's maybe just, not as noticeable, but yeah, man, if the Sabres were doing well, nobody would care. But I think the last time Terry might have spoken to the media was when he was on a Zoom call with his wife. You correct me if I'm wrong, Connor, but it might have been after they fired Botterill for Kevin Adams.
Yeah.
It was
right?
2020. It was 2020.
Which is crazy if you think about it.
And I think the Kim discussion also factors into this.
No doubt about it.
She was the figurehead of not only PSC, but she was I forget what her title was, but potentially president of both teams. And she did really have a public persona. I met her once actually, and she was one of the nicest people I had interacted with from that position. Right. So I think that very unfortunate situation, by the way. Obviously, it's been kind of publicly played out at this point, but she's essentially a vegetable and she doesn't have the ability to do what she previously did. Thank God she's still alive, right? But I do think that has weighed on his ability to have a public persona when it comes to both of these teams. Obviously, he's way more present when it comes to the Bills, and that fuels the fire for all of us and the criticism when it comes towards the Sabres. But I think the difference is he has no influence at all on personnel decisions when it comes to the Bills. When Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott came in 2017 and 2018, they told him very specifically that this is our team, our organization, and we're going to make the decisions, and we're going to live and die with the ship, right? They got it right with Josh Allen, and thank God we are in the place that we are. But Terry, and even in these Beyond Blue and Gold videos that we watch about the draft, about free agency, Terry is deeply involved in these decisions as an owner. And I think he has an overinflated sense of his hockey knowledge and his hockey mind and his ability to formulate a good hockey team. Clearly, they haven't made the playoffs in any full season since he's been an owner. So I think that's partially where this has all gone wrong, that he has too much influence on the actual hockey department and the decisions that are being made. A la the Taylor Hall video. If we sign this guy, we're not only going to the playoffs, we're trying to win the
Stanley Cup.
Right? That's what I'm saying. He has a very, very specific influence on what happens with this team. And maybe he should take a step back and do what he did with the Bills.
It's like he thinks he's as smart as the guys he's hired to make the hockey decisions when it's kind of clear that he isn't, which isn't a bad thing. It's not. Pat, so getting to one of the bigger topics, big topics on today of not just just Buffalo sports Twitter across the board, in my opinion. Obviously, there was a Buffalo Bills podcast today that reported on some news in regards to rookie cornerback Maxwell Harrison about his ACL and how it was they had a source I didn't really get too deep into the weeds with it, but from what I read, they kind of doubled down on what they were reporting initially, and then their source ended up not being accurate. Hairston came on Twitter himself to call it out, and then they retracted, gave their statement. This is the second time we've seen this was in the past month. And then you came out with your comment. I'll bring it up here in a moment. I just want to give you an opportunity here, not just from a Bills standpoint, just from just a Buffalo sports Twitter, like the debate between local and mainstream media versus what we do, right? Like podcasters. I don't sit here and we and Connor just talked about it where, we feel very grateful that, we got noticed at a concert this past weekend at Darien Lake. And it felt pretty, feels pretty cool when stuff like that happens. But by no means, just because of that, is that something that we don't claim to be reporters, right? We don't claim to be, guys, journalists or online journalists. We're podcasters. So there's that debate between local and mainstream media versus podcasters. I want you to I'm going to bring up your tweet here in a second, but I want you to give you an opportunity to kind of speak your mind on it, because I found the debate you had today on Twitter very interesting.
Well, let me say this, because I want to make sure that I try to paint this picture accurately. And I also want to preface this, that the podcast that you're talking about, which by the way is Circle the Wagons, if they're going to put some out there and 300,000 people are going to view it, we could call them by what their name is.
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
We don't have to say a podcast, because that's what it is. And this is an issue. And I've listened to their podcast before. I've enjoyed their podcast before. Pretty entertaining. You know what I mean? And I have no personal issue with either of those guys on the show. Like I said, I've enjoyed their podcast before. I follow them on Twitter. They follow me on Twitter. Here's where I take issue. They said, and this is what, so today, my days are all screwed up. It's Wednesday, correct? All right, so it's Wednesday around noon or so. They say confirmed Max Hairston has torn his ACL per source, and then they followed it up with another tweet. I have an issue when you use the word source, because I think it's a word that just gets thrown around way too easy. A source is something that is reliable. A lot of people will say, the equipment person over there, I heard something through him, and they'll say, oh, source says this, source says that, whatever. It bothered me, because at the end of the day, he didn't even hurt his ACL. His ACL's fine. It was his LCL. You're saying you have a source, okay, and it's not even remotely accurate, okay? And this is a trusted source that you said before. Miscommunications can happen. People have been wrong before. Adam Schefter's been wrong. It happens. Very good, respected local Buffalo media people have been wrong before. I don't really take issue with that part of it. It's how inaccurate it was, because if you're saying you have a source, it felt to me like you're taking a stab. All right, you're taking an educated guess, because I was there. I was on the track. I'll tell you straight up, man. I was talking to Joe DiBiase from WGR at the time, and we both got wind within 10 minutes of that injury that we were being told it's significant. That's all the word was, significant, in the injury. Players were saying prayers. Christian Benford was shaken up. Dane Jackson was really shaken up about it. Max Hairston looked in agony, like he thought he tore his ACL. I can understand why you would conclude that. And to me, it feels like that those guys made a decision. They took an educated guess that he has a torn ACL, and they decided they want to be first, and they put it out there. If you're right, awesome. But if you're not, it's got to be a big deal when you're wrong about that, because the other thing is, if you say it's a source, you got the worst source ever. Your source is either knows nothing, or he just straight up lying to you. And if that's the case, why would you have a source? Again, he didn't tear his ACL. He didn't even hurt it. His ACL's fine. It was his LCL, and it was a sprain. It's just too far off. So I took issue with that. And then I especially took issue with the fact that afterwards they made a quick, they said this botched information from a source, you think, and then they had a couple GIFs, and then they deleted the tweet. And they're saying they own it. Actually, they said they own it. Owning it, making a one-sentence apology, a couple comedic GIFs, and then deleting the tweet is absolutely not owning it. So that's where it became, for me, personal, because I think it affects the entire podcasting community, the way it's perceived by the average casual person anyway, when you hear something like that. It was a complete bullshit report. Let's just call it what it is. If an educated guess or just an absolute awful source, if you want to use that word. So that kind of put me in a tizzy. And I know I sound like the old guy clenching my fists, yelling at the crowds right now. No, I get that. I do. I understand that. I'm coming across as kind of being a dick to some people, and I'm okay with that. Chad DeDominicis, that's my guy, man. And me and him have been kind of going back and forth, bickering all day in the aftermath of all this. But yeah, dude, I took big exception to it because I think it's unfair that people can just, in today's Twitter world or whatever, they can put out whatever they want. And if you're right, you take the credit. And if you're wrong, oh, well, I'm sorry. Shit happens. And let's just move forward or move on. No big deal. It is a big deal because it does make people who work hard and do things the right way. I think it's a black eye, and it makes a lot of people look bad, just the community as a whole. So yeah, that's where I'm at with that.
I mean, I think it is a big deal too, specifically the nature of the story, right? Like this and the red helmets thing a couple weeks ago are two entirely different things. Like the red helmet and their source, like
big
that's
difference.
Fine. They got that wrong, but at the end of the day, like that's not going to change the course of the season. The Bills' first round pick potentially missing the entire season and changing the course of his career, and that information being out there not only affects Bills fans and how we all thought about it, and we were all very sad and very upset and distressed, but that affects Maxwell too, right? Like he's dealt with a lot even in the past few months. Who knows what's actually happening with the civil suit? Who knows what's actually happening with what happened at Kentucky? But he's claiming, or he and his lawyers are fighting back, that none of that transpired, right? So he's already dealing with a situation of he said, she said, and a situation in college that who knows what actually happened. But that's been troubling for him from the time he got drafted, right? Yeah. So for a podcast, and another thing that I mean, I get it. They said that their source has never been wrong on anything. And I think they said 7 or 8 times. And I get not naming a source. Believe me, I work at TMZ. I'm in the thick of reporting and being first on stories. And even with Hulk Hogan last week, the way that it transpired and the way that we confirmed it and the way that we broke it first, the amount that you have to do to be sure before you break a big story is so intense. It is calling friends of friends, not even just friends of friends, medical examiners, the police, getting confirmation from accredited organizations. I responded to the Circling the Wagons podcast today and said that if you didn't see that MRI yourself or you weren't in the room, there's no way you put that news out there. You don't report that news with hearing it from a friend of a friend or a source that has given you information on other Bills news in the past. That's not something you do, and that's irresponsible. And I completely understand why you're as upset about it as you are, because this specifically relates to someone's livelihood and the way that they'll move throughout their NFL career. A sprain that he'll likely be ready for week 1 and a torn ACL, especially with how often torn ACLs happen these days, are two entirely different things and is extremely irresponsible. And what you said as well, they should be held accountable. I don't know how tangibly they're held accountable, right? Whether that's them losing followers or people not listening to their podcast. I guess that's the viewer's decision after this, right? Maybe they will, maybe they won't.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, I think what you've put out there and what other people have said to them, they should feel some sense of remorse. They should feel some sense of, hey, we need to never do this again, because that was way different than some of these other like incorrect source offs that we've seen in the past few weeks. Like this is a very, very serious thing.
I'm really glad that you brought up the football helmet thing, the red helmet thing, because see, that's to me is a big difference. And it's not about the significance or how important it is. It's about the report. I can understand. I could see a scenario where I still don't think you should report it, but let's go to the football helmets. There could be a source and maybe you could get a miscommunication, a little bit of misinformation there. Well, the red helmets, they're not using them this year. They're using these gray throwback, silver, nickelback, whatever the hell they're calling them for rivalry week. And they're doing I could see how that can get a little bit lost in translation. Saying that somebody has a torn ACL, that's cut and dry. You know what I mean? It's not open for interpretation whatsoever. A source saying somebody torn his ACL when he didn't even injure his ACL and it was his LCL that he sprained. Again, either A, you don't have a source and you're using the word source and you're just assuming an educated guess, which probably if there would have been Vegas odds this morning when we all woke up, probably would have said Max Harrison has a torn ACL. Based on what we saw at practice, the film that John Scott shot of him laying down, the reaction from the teammates, the money would have been on him having a torn ACL. I think they figured, let's just throw it out there and take a chance. Or again, if they have an actual source, it's got to be the worst source ever or their source doesn't like you and they're going to lie to you that bad because you can't, it's cut and dry, dude. There's no room for a miscommunication when it's not an ACL injury whatsoever. So it pissed me off. And again, I like their podcast. They've done, do what you do good. They have an entertaining show. I've listened to it before. I follow them on Twitter. I've gotten useful information from them in the past. The reason why it bothers me so much, and even right now as we're talking about it, is because at the end of the day, it just puts a black eye on the podcast community as a whole. I can't tell you guys how many times I've been doing this for 7.5 years. I've had Talking Buffalo now. How many times I've ran into casual friends, kind of semi-strangers, acquaintances, whatever. And they're like, yeah, I don't listen to podcasts. You know, I don't listen to podcasts. They don't know what they're talking about or they're full of shit. You know, whatever derogatory way that podcasts are lesser than. And these are the situations, these are the incidences that give those people the ammunition to say things like that. And maybe I'm overreacting, admittedly. You know, I'm a knee-jerk reactor. I get all that. It bothers me. And probably the worst part, which I said already, is I just didn't feel like that was a legitimate actual, I'm really sorry. We thought this and that, owning it. Having a couple gifts, Billy Madison or Happy Gilmore gif, shaking the kid, whatever. It's just, that didn't feel right to me. And deleting the tweet. You say you own it. That's not owning it. And I don't know. Like I said, I continue to take issue with the fact that there's a lot of people out there, podcasters, content creators that work hard, really hard, to do things the right way and report things when they do the right way. Chad and I were beefing earlier, Chad D. Dominicis, and I guarantee you this, if Chad puts out a story and says a source, I promise you he has vetted that source very well. Oftentimes he'll have multiple sources. He doesn't just throw shit out there in the wind. So that's why if Chad's wrong, I know it's not because he was just, making shit up. That, I guess, is where I'm getting at. But in other situations, it's hard to be, I don't know. It's hard to not be skeptical when things like that happen today as they did.
Yeah, and with obviously, I saw your back and forth with Chad earlier today, and I'm kind of on I don't know if I'm allowed to be, but I'm on both sides of that fence, right? I personally,
so am I.
Yeah, you know what I mean? I don't disagree with you and I don't disagree with Chad. You know what I mean? I don't report on the team. And I don't feel like when we get criticized negatively, because, we might have an opinion that so-and-so might not agree with. Okay, cool. And you report on the team. No, I don't report on the team. Do I have a credential? Does it look like I have a credential? I'm a host of a podcast about the team. We talk about the team from a fan perspective. I'm not radio syndicated. I don't have credentials. I you know what I mean? In certain respects, maybe, but I can't call to confirm news about the team from somebody in Sabres PR or upper management because I'm not on that level. So I don't consider myself somebody who reports on the team. Now, have there been situations where I was privy to information that I could have reported on and chose not to? Absolutely. Connor knows this. Our team knows about this. I'm not going to be specific, but if you follow the show, if you follow especially recently, we knew about a certain player and they were going to sign with the team. It's kind of obvious, again, if you follow the team. We knew 24 hours beforehand. Felt very confident about reporting it, but one, and that first and foremost, out of respect for said player and our source, we chose not to, because I don't believe in burning bridges. I don't believe in being the first to something, even though we kind of technically weren't, because Elliot Friedman kind of was the night before in his 32 Thoughts column, even though he didn't like confirm it. But B, like, until I have it from the horse's mouth, I'm not going to do that, even though I felt 99.9% positive that this was going to happen. I just don't believe in burning those bridges. I believe in our business when it comes to getting guests on your show, developing credibility. It's all about building relationships. That's what this business is. Really, if you're not a credentialed journalist or reporter, it's all about building your relationships in this business. And I'm pretty sure Connor feels the same. But we've had those opportunities, and we've kind of chose to go in a different direction. Maybe we won't report on it, but we'll have them on the show to talk about it. Like, if I'm not making it any more obvious than that. And Connor, I'll let you hit with your thoughts next. But
I mean, real quick, a super funny example of this, because it was mentioned to me today. I don't know if you saw, Pat, when Lou Lamoriello was spotted in the Buffalo airport, but that was a text that I got in my like best friend group chat from Buffalo. And it was from a friend of a friend, but that friend of a friend was like, I am 100% sure, as a hockey fan my entire life, that Lou Lamoriello just walked past me in the Buffalo airport just as I text you this. And I tweeted it out, and I was like, spotted Lou Lamoriello in the airport. And this was like in the heat of the Sabres looking for a senior advisor role. So obviously the dots could be connected, right? And a lot of people in the immediate aftermath like called it fake. They were upset about the report. They were upset about a variety of different things. But other than that, it was just, hey, we know with 100% certainty that Lou Lamoriello was in the Buffalo airport. We don't definitely know why he's here. Turns out Darren Dreger confirmed that he was here to renew his nexus like an 85-year-old man would do. But in that instance, we knew with 100% certainty that he was there. And that's why we did it. And it caused a firestorm. It got on Chicklets. Darren Dreger was mentioning it. And it turned into a fun little thing, right? That's different than reporting on somebody's ACL being severed if you're not in the operating room. If you were not with that MRI technician and they're not showing you the results of the scan with the Bills team doctor, and you're not Adam Schefter or Ian Rappaport or Jordan Schultz or any of these credited reporters that have broken stories like this in the past, even after the initial tweet was put out, my verbatim response was, no disrespect to these guys, because I know they're a legitimate podcast, but I'm going to wait until Rappaport or Schefter report on this one to confirm that this guy's ACL is torn, because I can't trust with 100% certainty that their source is correct. And that's what it comes down to. I
might have misspoken. I want to make this clear too. Like, Duane, let's just say you're not a reporter, okay? You don't work for the Buffalo News. You're not a journalist. You're a podcaster, okay? But let me say this. If you know of a guy who's going to sign the next day, or you have some inside information that you're privy to about a Josh Norris injury, what the extent of it is, what that injury is, I want to be clear. I'm not saying that you should not report that. By all means, do it. But if it's inaccurate and your source turns out to be bullshit, and in this case, if there is a source, it clearly turned out to be bullshit. If you make that decision that you're going to put it out there on your podcast here, on social media, and you're wrong, you need to be prepared to deal with what deservedly so should be pretty heavy consequences. You need to know that fans are going to no longer find you credible, that some people are going to unfollow you on Twitter. Some people are going to unsubscribe from your podcast. They're not going to tune in anymore. You need to know what those consequences are and then evaluate if it's worth doing it. And if in a case of an injury or something that's really serious, you better be damn sure. Because you know what, Duane? You could get 9 things in a row right. That one thing you get wrong, especially if it's a thing like this, that's all people are going to remember. And the last thing I'll say, I'm speaking on this from experience. Maybe that's the reason why I got so ruffled today seeing this. I've been through this before. I've been on the other side before. About 12 years ago, I'm not going to go into the whole story, but I put out a story that ended up being very inaccurate about Sean Merriman and the Canadian border. A lot of people remember that. That was me. I did that. And I had a single source, and the information was spotty, and I wanted to be first. It was first over being right. I chose being first over making sure that I was right. And that story had enough holes in it that it was plausibly deniable. It fell apart, and I got dragged. I spent 4 years building up a following, building credibility, and in one report, in one day, I blew it. And it took me years to get it back. So when I see this podcast today, again, a podcast that I've enjoyed, and I have no issue with these guys, I think that's why I react the way I do, because I've been through it. I know how much it could just screw you over, and I've learned in the process about you. Hear people say it all the time. Being right is more important than being first. Clearly, those guys made a decision to be first and hope that they were right, and they weren't. So I'm kind of speaking from my own personal experience that it really sucks. And for anyone out there who's listening to this show, if you're a content creator, don't do it. Don't do it unless you are a gazillion% sure when it's something of this magnitude.
Yeah.
Listen, I was real quick. I was worried that it wasn't Lou, right? Like even Duane said it to me when I tweeted out.
Yeah.
Are you sure that was Lou? I was like, the guy says he's been following hockey his whole life, and he knows what Lou Lamoriello looks like. So yeah, it was Lou, right? I don't think these guys today had bad intentions. I really don't.
No, I don't either.
Yeah, and I think, and they even said it, they wanted to be wrong because everybody wants to see Maxwell Hairston on the field this season. He may not win. He's definitely not going to win the starting job for week 1 at this point. But with a 4.28 40, a first-round draft pick, all the pedigree that he has, everybody wants to see him play in his rookie year and be what Kaiir Elam wasn't for this team, right? They did not want to be wrong. So the intentions, I think, were good. But as you said, it was irresponsible at the end of the day. And
it's reckless.
I do think, like you said, like, they're going to have to build it back, right? Whether that be just as podcasters, taking more accountability on air, something of that nature, because there aren't like you said, like you can't just respond with a couple gifts and treat it like it wasn't a big deal, because clearly it was a big deal to Maxwell. He tweeted out that it was cap, right? Like he tweeted out that he was upset about it, and
they got 300,000 views.
Yeah, even after his
early in the
Instagram
day
post last night that he said he was like beyond blessed, like I don't know, that was probably difficult for him as well. And they definitely should face some consequences.
For what it's worth, I heard that he hurt his ACL before not today, like yesterday,
right?
And I was like, "There's no way because that's what I heard." I wasn't going to do it. And look, I also know. Like when you're trying to be as credible as possible, you want as many people to follow you, and you want to be like, why are you doing a podcast if you don't want to be respected? If you don't care if people respect you, if your peers respect you, if the mainstream media respect you, if you don't give a shit, then I don't even know why you're doing a show. Everybody wants to have a level of credibility and respect from people that they want to listen to them, at least on some levels. And I listen, man, I had meeting people on my show. I've been doing it for 7.5 years. I've gotten to know a lot of them very, very well. And I'm telling you, there's a stigma with alternative media. It's harder to impress. You know what I mean? Like you got to be really good to impress, whether it's the mainstream media or just a certain level of fans. And when things like this happen, it just really puts just a black eye over the entire community, and that's what I keep coming back to, and that's why I take exception. I don't mean no ill will. Like I don't want people to, be too hard on these guys. I hope they and me. This is a teaching point for me, a reminder for me. It should be for you guys, for everybody who has a show or has a blog or whatever.
Yep.
Be careful. Be really
100%.
careful, because when you're wrong, man, that thinking of the followers I'll get when I'm right or whatever shine you get that day, that shit goes away in 15 minutes, man. But if you're wrong, those guys are going to be putting out tweets a month from now, and people, no matter what they say, and people are still going to rip them for what they did. That's all I'm saying. I hate to see it, man.
bringing up, obviously, I already seen it in the chat, so I'm going to bring it up here because, it's just,
Sure.
when I talked about we don't report on the team because we're not reporters, not journalists, like, yes, it was brought up in the peanut gallery, like, perfect example, Lou Lamoriello thing. At no point was Connor reporting that Lou Lamoriello was going to be the next senior advisor of the Buffalo Sabres.
Right.
At no point did he say that. But
Never said it.
It's literally him in the Buffalo airport. Speculate as you may. Why is he here? It just so happens to be in the same time frame as we are on a senior advisor search, and he happens to be potentially available because he's no longer the GM of, even though I guess he was at the time still advising, he was no longer the GM for the New York Islanders, right? Yeah, it was the Islanders. So yeah, dude, like, you could speculate that. And then I'm seeing more stuff about Noah Dobson. I'm going to bring up the tweet right here just because, I don't know. Apparently this was us reporting on it. I don't know. In what universe is this me reporting that Noah Dobson's going to be a Buffalo Sabre? No, I saw that from a couple Islanders, actually, ironically enough, podcast pages. This could be a three-way deal with Utah involving Noah Dobson, because Noah Dobson was on the block. I'll even say it myself. Some are saying it could be a three-way trade to bring Noah Dobson to Buffalo, finally bringing a right-handed defenseman for Owen Power. At no point am I reporting anything.
There's no confirmed. There's no confirmed there.
No confirmed.
There's not like this
sources.
is the trade. This is
down. Sit down. Nobody's reporting anything. It's just going on in the same time frame. The Noah Dobson conversation is going on at the same time frame. You literally have people just like us online saying this could be a three-way trade. Hell yeah, three-way trade sounds great to me. I think I even may have saw somebody on Twitter, again, with no sources at all whatsoever, stating this could have been a three-way trade. No point are we reporting anything, dude. If I was reporting this was a three-way trade, I would have been hammering that a lot harder. No doubt about it. But no way am I reporting that Noah Dobson was in any way coming to Buffalo on a three-way trade.
Things get twisted real quick. Things always get twisted.
Oh my God. Really, yeah.
Really quick.
We would have been hammering that so hard, so much harder if that was in fact, because it took a while for them to release the details on what was going on at Paterka. I think it was like, what was it, Turles? Like 1 to 2 hours for us to figure out what the hell was going on and what the return was.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So for me, like that, along with the loose stuff, we're just like, holy shit. Could this be real? Could this be happening? We're speculating along with the rest of the fan base.
Yeah.
If we're going to report on something and we're going to confirm something and we're going to, trust me, it's going to be a bigger tweet than that. Or again, going back with the conversation I had before that, when I had almost from the horse's mouth, this player signing with Buffalo a day beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? We're going to blow that up and have a lot of fun with it. Not a lot of fun with it, but you know what I mean.
There's exceptions, like say, for an example, I've seen Chad DiDomenicis a couple times have source reports that turn out to be accurate, that he got that before Harrington or Lance Lazowski or whoever else, in the mainstream media got that. But by and large, going back to Max Harrison again, guys like Joe Biscaglia and Sal Capaccio and God, I can keep going down the list. A lot of people, the Bills, they're there every day, okay? They develop relationships with players. They develop relationships with coaches, sources inside that building. If nobody at all who covers his team for a living is reporting on Max Harrison's injury, doesn't that tell you something?
Yeah.
It tells you something, doesn't it?
No, I never believed it. I never believed it from the jump, right? Like
I did.
And that's tough. I mean, given like the video yesterday, right? But like, I never was like, this is confirmed. Like, this is like,
sure.
Like,
and they said confirmed too, by the way.
Yeah, I know. And that was the tough part. But at the end of the day, like you said, like I get most of my Bills content and news from, as you said, Joe B, because I think he does the best job covering the team, and he has for the past 12 to 13 years.
Yeah.
And I get a lot of my Sabres news from Matthew Fairburn, because we've had him on before, and I think he does a really good job of covering the team. Same with Mike Harrington. Both of them have been around. They're in the press conferences. They have sources within the organization, right? Like Matthew Fairburn had a story a long time ago with Brandon Beane, following him around during his scouting process, going to different pro days, going to different camps. He knows him personally, right? Like if you know people within the organization personally, I think that's way different. What happened today is entirely different. Real quick, I got to get out of here. I have a beer league hockey game. Pat, thanks for coming on. Nice meeting you. And
nice meeting you too, man.
We'll talk again soon.
Sounds good, man.
Yeah.
Appreciate you.
And we'll wrap up here in a second, Pat. And again, thank you for coming on. Yeah, like until you use the word confirmed in anything, in no way, shape, or form are you reporting anything news. Like you speculate, you know, to Connor's point. But I think there's a responsibility on our end of things too, like you said, to make sure that you have your T's crossed and your I's dotted. Like I said, I talked about relationships earlier. Like I have a great relationship with both Andrew Peters and Greg Rivet. Like Andrew has flat out told me, and this is a guy that you can say reports on the Sabres because he played for the team.
Yeah, sure, 100%. He's embedded. He's got source. If Andrew Peters says source, I'm going to believe Andrew Peters.
And he broke the Jack Eichel trade. You know what I mean? Like he was first on with that. Like, so when people like that say things, yeah, I'm going to believe them. Or, you know, to me, that's about as solid of a source as you're going to get from a non-traditional media outlet. You know what I mean? Non-mainstream, not local media. You're not your Lance Lyasowskis, your Matthew Fairburns. He flat out told me, like, you know how many times I've had to like pass up on things that have been told to me in a group chat because for the same reasons I said before, you don't want to burn a bridge. You want to let something come out the traditional way, just out of respect for whoever it's about. Or B, you're hearing it through secondary, word of mouth, but it's from somebody that you can trust. But at the same time, unless you're hearing it from the horse's mouth themselves, you don't want to go there. Now, could we have dropped that information about that signing? Yeah, absolutely. We're wrong. That 0.01%, comes into play. Like, okay, we'll own it. We'll lose some followers, whatever. But I personally would rather have the person on our show the next week rather than be the first to report on it and burn that bridge because maybe you pissed them off. Like, well, what the hell, man? Like, why were you the one to leak it? Why were you the one to do that? Now you got me in trouble, yada, yada, yada. I'd rather be that guy that has the guy on the show to talk about it rather than being the first to report it.
And that's fine. But there's still a difference between deciding that you do know something, but you choose not to report it for those reasons, which is very valid, as opposed to just being flat out wrong.
Exactly.
There's a big difference when it comes to that. And going back to my tweet earlier, I would say this about your show. I would say this about Circle the Wagons pod. I said something like in my tweet, I said podcasters and content creators, us, are conversationalists and entertainers, so to speak, analysts. I want to hear Duane and Connor react to the Josh Norris news. That's the value. Now, maybe I'm wrong. This is how I think podcasts, generally speaking, should be. Now, again, some mainstream people, especially in football now, Sal Capaccio and Matt Bove got a show. Matt Perino's got a show. Most of the Tim Graham.
They're right to.
Yeah, exactly. But my point is that's different because they are also reporters for the team. So if they're going to break news or whatever. But I'd rather tune into your show to hear you guys react to whatever the news of the day is. That's the value that I'm going to get from your show. Ditto with Circle the Wagons podcast. What's going on with the Bills at camp? What's your observations? What are you seeing? Those are the things that I think bring value to the community. Don't try to be Adam Schefter because as you saw today, the consequence for being wrong is far, far stronger than the reward for being right. And maybe I was a little bit, because Chad, again, took exception to at least some of my wording where I said source, you need to be a reporter, a professional reporter to have sources. And he's kind of right about that. Like I kind of could have worded that a little bit better. I think what I was trying to say is that people just use the word source way too loosely. Again, there's a difference between an embedded actual source as opposed to some dude that who's heard something and you run with it. You know what I mean? It's
yeah, like to Connor's point, your point, if again, that's a big deal too. Like the level between one and the other, between the Bills news, from the podcasting world that came over the past month, the levels are just so extremely different. Like, this is a HIPAA thing. You know what I mean? This could get somebody sued. You know what I mean? Depending on who your source is.
Do you know why a lot of people
get
Duane,
fired over stuff like that?
Do you know why there's people out there that don't take your show seriously? Why there's people out there that don't take my show seriously and shows like ours? Because what happens when you're wrong? You might get beat up by the fans on Twitter a little bit, unfollowed, shit talk to you. But what's the real life consequence? Are you getting fired? Is there going to be if this was you, and if you reported Max Harrison tore his ACL via a source, and it can turn out to be absolute, complete, inaccurate bullshit, which it was. If you wanted to have a show tomorrow, are you going to have one? Yes. Are you going to get fired? Are you going to fire yourself? No. You know what I mean? So there's not consequence. It's too easy for people to just roll the dice and not give a shit if they're wrong. Oh, I'm sorry. My bad. Our source was wrong. We've never been wrong before, and blah, 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 blah. It don't work that way, man. You got to, there's a responsibility if you want to play reporter, there's a responsibility. If you want to be an analyst, you want to entertain, you want to talk, you want to have conversations, say what you want. But if you want to play reporter and put your shit out there in public, you got to be prepared for the consequence.
And with Circle the Wagons too, like I'm sure they're, whenever they have their next podcast and they talk, they address the big elephant in the room, right? Hopefully there's a very genuine response and, well thought out, well presented. You would expect so, right? And I'm not like, again, I'm more of a hockey. I love the Bills through and through. They're just as much embedded in my DNA as the Sabres. But obviously, like, I'm ride or die Sabres more so than I am ride or die Bills. Even though I you know what I mean? Just not trying to compare my fanhood for both teams. But I'm not going to lose respect for those guys because they're doing the same grind that I do. And they've built that. Look at their follower count. Like, they've built
They got three times the amount of followers that I do, and that was before today. That was before they put it out. They had plenty of followers before that. So
exactly,
I think they made an error. I think they made a very bad error in judgment, a very bad one. And I'd like to see. I don't know. I'm not trying to play police here, Duane, but I would like to see some genuine. I'm sorry over what happened. I did a bit recently. It turned into a bit. It wasn't intended to be on social media. I was looking for Busch Light apple, and I called freaking 90,000 stores, and I found one Tops Market in Hamburg, 35 minutes away from me, and they said they had it, and they would hold it for me, and I confirmed it on the phone that it was going to be a 35-minute drive. I drove there. Guess what? No Tops Busch Light apple, and that sucked. But what pissed me off was the aftermath. If they would have explained, hey, I'm really sorry, this was a miscommunication. I thought you said this, blah, blah, blah. The manager gave me a lazy bullshit sorry. That's what set me off. I was like, sorry. After I told them everything that I did to get there, that's what made me go on a rampage against them. I kind of feel like their lack of true, hey, I'm really sorry, we got bullshit information, or we speculated wrong, we assumed this was going to be the case. Mm-hmm. Whatever it may be, it's the aftermath that kind of has really gotten me going more than the actual erroneous report, or maybe not as much, but close to it. So,
but you're not going to stop shopping at Tops because of this one. You know what I mean?
Yes, I am.
I'm not. Oh, you are. I mean, for me personally, like, that's one individual at a one location. You know what I mean? Like, to me, like, I shop at Tops like every day. Not to make this about a Tops, but you know what I mean? Like, if I were in your shoes, I wouldn't stop shopping at Tops because it was just an error in judgment. Maybe a different manager would have handled it differently. Sure. But like, I'm not going to not listen to Bill's podcast or even the Circle the Wagons podcast because of one judgment and error. And I hope they do own it, like you said. And I hope they do address it. And you know what? It's for me, it's just a lesson learned, not for them, but for all of us, right?
I hope so. I really hope it is. Again, it's a lesson for me, or at least a reminder for me of what can happen. Because there's been times I've heard things, and I have been very tempted to go on Twitter and say, per source, this. Now, in fairness to me, the times that I considered it, I was right. I would have been right. I would not have been wrong. But there's times where it's been iffy, and I thought about it. I'm just like, you know what? Because, again, I've effed up before. So I've been through it in the past. It's not worth it, man. It's not worth it to do something if you're not. And again, if that's it's just, what an awful source. If this is a friend, what a shitty friend, a shitty source, a shitty whatever this is, because to be that wrong, I mean, come on. It wasn't even close, dude. Not even close to a torn ACL.
No,
So,
yeah, again, to your point, to Connor's point earlier, unless you're physically seeing his MRI, it has his name on it, and you speak to somebody directly involved with his
or their agent, like Ian Rappaport or
like
Jordan Schultz or these guys, they hear directly from the agent who will tell you.
100%.
Yeah, it sucks. I don't wish any. I know I've come across today on Twitter, maybe at times on your show tonight, and I talked about it on my show when I taped it earlier. Probably will again at some point as well. I don't want to. I apologize to them if I'm coming off as being personal towards them. I'm taking it personal towards podcasting. I'm taking it personal towards the entire community, just because I've know a lot of people, and I've seen how much it's just so easy to shit on what we do. And it's because of things like today that makes it easy for so many people to just take a shit on the stuff that we do and dismiss it, which is wrong, because there's a lot of podcasts out there. I'll take Joe Marino and Lockdown Bills, and I'll put that up against any podcast out there, mainstream or otherwise. Cover One and those guys, the way they break down film, Bruce Nolan, educated, informant. There's so many great shows out there, or people who work really hard, dude. And I'm sure on the hockey side as well. And things like that just make it easier for people to take a shit on the entire alternative media as a whole. So that's what I take personal, as opposed to necessarily those guys.
I could very well said. Pat, thank you so much for hopping on. If you want to find Patrick Moran and listen to his talk, well, actually, you tell us how we can find you.
Well, you know where you can find me? Thursday night at Sunny Reds. I'm going to be there I'm going to be there 8 p.m. live show. Joe Marino from Lockdown Bills, Jeremy White from WGR 550 are both going to be with me. The show's at 8 p.m. They'll be there plenty early. So if anybody who's listening or watching this, if you want to meet those guys, hang out, shoot the shit with them a little bit, get some great food. Sunny Reds. Connor talked about my wing reviews. Sunny Reds is one of the very best spots in Western New York. So I will be there on Thursday night with those guys. Besides that, Monday through Friday, talking Buffalo, audio, wherever you listen to podcasts, YouTube, all that fun stuff. I feel bad, Duane. I'm not happy with myself right now. I'm kind of mad that I've let my emotions kind of get the best of me. Sometimes in life when you screw up and you make a mistake yourself and you see other people do what you did before, you kind of take that personal and maybe you react really strong. That's what I'm feeling right now. That's what I'm feeling today, because I did this before and I know what it's like, and it's not fun. So anyway.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Like I said, at the end of the day, through this, they've learned a lesson and we all learn a lesson through them, right? So again, I appreciate you coming on, Pat. You can find him at Patrick Moran TV on Twitter. And if you've enjoyed this podcast, please make sure, if you're following along on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, please float us a follow. Follow me at DuaneS39. If you're listening on Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcast, please make sure you give us a review. It always helps. And especially if you're watching on YouTube, hammer that like button, hammer that subscribe button. Goes a long way. So I am Duane from Two Goalies, One Mic. This has been episode 202 of Two Goalies, One Mic, brought to you by Fatty Beer Company, Western New York's premier market and tap room. Until next time, everybody, as always, go Sabres.